Let's do it.
All right. Wow. Um, Round number two. We're gonna try the not live check-in. With
I
the
mean, it's live right now. I mean, we're live
we're
technically.
we're live. We're live. But this is a recorded podcast check-in. And exactly the same format, exactly the same conversation, exactly the same aim, which is to talk about your week of training, nutrition, challenges, see how it all went, see where you're at, see if there's anything that comes up within that we can talk about and unpack that might be insightful to anybody else. But yeah, last time round, some technical difficulties, mainly on my side. Didn't quite record my sound, and that one didn't go anywhere. Actually, we just chalked it up to a learning lesson and left it there. But hopefully, that's just 1 week sacrificed, and this is all going to come out a okay. We've tested it a few times, and yeah, I'm looking forward. Like I was super excited last week to be on the podcast format. I'm still excited because I still think this is such a cool direction. My the mind of most confessions of a personal trainer. I'm kind of shortening that down to confessions of a personal trainer. It's super long-winded to type out when you're uploading these things to like YouTube and Spotify and stuff, and like it cuts off half the text anyway. And confessions of a personal trainer is probably a suitable title for the podcast. And you're also recording this separately for your uh, unannounced, untitled as of yet podcast. Um, Soon to come. Whether you're going to use this one or not is a different story altogether. But I'm glad we're sort of moving this into the podcast realm. Because that's kind of where I want to be at. And Instagram Live was fun. We did get a little bit of engagement, a little bit of people jumping in, paying attention, and appreciating that. And definitely, a few people came up to me and was making like, oh, don't stop doing that, man. And I'm like, oh, don't worry, it's not stopping. We're just moving over to a different platform. So I'm super glad to be here. How about you?
Yeah, I'm feeling the exact same way. I mean, we spoke about this last time. How I always wish that there was always this little fly on the wall whenever we had those conversations that would last sometimes 2 or even 3 hours, talking about God knows what. I don't know, philosophy, relationships, work, and how to progress not only as a personal trainer but also as a human being, just on a general basis. So it's really cool to be able to record this and put it out in the world for whoever wants to listen. But I guess on a personal note, you mentioned the podcast that I'm thinking about launching. I'm just thinking potentially I can repurpose this content and use it for my own podcast. I've been thinking about launching podcasts. I'm not sure on what exactly, but it's going to be fitness related for sure. So I know this is going to be useful. There's going to be some
the
gems in here
the the
that I
lean
can use.
the lean muscle podcast.
I don't know if this is taken. I haven't checked. It
It could
probably is
be.
taken.
It could
Probably
be. It
is
could
taken.
be. You never know.
I don't know. I'll check. I'll check. But I haven't looked into the details yet. But it probably will happen very soon. In the meantime, here we are with a live check-in. So yeah, I'm pumped now. I'm looking forward to it.
All right. Cool. That's right. Let's get stuck into it then. I guess we didn't. In a way, we've got like 2 weeks to catch up on. Um, whilst we kind of know where we're at in terms of anybody listening, they wouldn't have had uh, an update on the week before. So I guess like it'd be probably good if we just do like a quick little recap on the week before this one, um, and just quick overview of how things went on that side, if you even remember.
Yeah, I guess a brief overview is at the time of recording last week for that podcast that was never released, I trained 3 times and I was planning to train on that day after the podcast, which I did not. So I trained 3 times.
Oh, you were so adamant you were gonna go.
I
Like,
was
I'm
pumped.
going,
I
gonna
wanted to go gym so
score.
bad,
You even rated yourself a
so bad.
3.8 because you were gonna make it 4 times.
So now it's actually 3.5. Okay, if I could go back and change
Wow.
that rating. So as far as nutrition was concerned, it was, I think, fairly good in the sense that I was quite consistent with my calorie intake. My protein intake was fairly high. Could it have been higher for sure? It could have. So I wasn't. I felt like my nutrition was good. It wasn't perfect, but it was good for the most part. And we touched on the fact that my sleep, I just have to accept that my sleep is just something that I've got no control over, or at least very little control over, just because sometimes my little toddler, Manaya, she would not go to sleep for whatever reason. She doesn't want to go to bed. And then when she does go to bed, she wakes up at odd hours in the morning, maybe 3 or 4 in the morning. And that really breaks up my sleep patterns and that really messes me up. So I've come to accept that sleep is just one of those things that's gonna that might not be perfect. It might be subpar even at some point, but that's okay. That's okay. There are so many other variables that I can control, like my training, like nutrition. So I'm going to focus on those. And yeah, for the most part, it was an okay week, and it was actually better than I thought when I started talking to you about it.
Yeah, I'm gonna quickly like sort of sleep kind of becomes a conversation that pops up quite often in our check-ins. Mainly because of the fact that you're a parent and you've got like children at an age where they are disruptive to sleep. And we've talked about this 2 or 3 times before. One of the times was just like straight after I'd basically watched this podcast on sleep, and how just like not really stressing about it leads to you know the, what the lady was saying is that we see people that stress about sleep a lot less get more better sleep, right? And that nobody really has this sort of perfect sleep thing where sometimes you're going to be awake, sometimes you're not, sometimes it's you're going to get X amount of hours, sometimes you're not. But the people that tend to worry about it more tend to have more of the issues. And obviously, you're just sort of like, it is what it is. So that's already a good sign. But and then from a training perspective, like we know that we need the sleep for our recovery. And then I think my interjection to that was more so along the lines of, whilst you can't control the sleep, it would then just mean having to obviously adjust the training. Now, there's a psychological component to that. It's all well and good me saying that. It's all well and good you nodding your head and being like, yeah, that's right. That's the thing that we're supposed to do. The only thing is when you get into the gym and, especially if you're training with a purpose like you are, in the back of your mind, because there's still the gym culture, there's still the bodybuilding culture, and there's still in the back of your mind, like all these other people on Instagram and everywhere else, this whole time, Dorian Yates, Arnold Schwarzenegger, whoever it is, like, is talking about training hard in the gym and how, the reason you haven't got results because you didn't train hard, right? And yeah, to some extent, obviously, I understand what they're saying. When I'm not gonna go deeper into that. I'm sure I've talked about it enough, and I'll probably talk about it many times more again about the whole go hard or go home thing. But it's there. You're in the middle of your exercise. You got an option. You can go heavier on the weight. You can do that extra few repetitions, and the likelihood is there is that voice in the back of your mind saying, "Man, like this is it. This is the moment where you make a decision as to whether you're going to get those gains or you're not going to get those gains, whether you're going to win that competition or you're not going to win that competition, because that mentality is so sewn into the whole idea around training, especially when it comes to bodybuilding. And, it's there, it's more present in that moment than any other moment. So outside of that moment, in this conversation right now, it's easy to be like, yeah, when sleep's not optimal, I'm gonna manage my training accordingly. you know I'm gonna have a few more reps in reserve. I'm gonna manage my training frequency. I'm not gonna train as much. Or but it's very uh, and like correct me if I'm wrong, but when you're there, you you've got the opportunity to just push that little bit extra. And when your sleep isn't optimal, actually it's a better idea to stay within a safe range. But when you're there, do you do that? No, no, you don't.
Yeah, I guess where I want to interject on this one is, we've had this conversation before about me personally and the way that I train and how hard I train. And in the past, I know when we first met, I very much had this I've got to train hard mentality. If it's not hard, if it doesn't feel hard, then what am I doing? It's not working. That was very much my mindset at the time. And then through some conversations, you helped me realize that, hey, it doesn't have to be hard all the time. You can build up to some level of difficulty of intensity, but it doesn't have to feel like this all the time. And I guess in a sense, with time, I kind of reversed and went in the completely opposite direction of, oh, it doesn't have to be hard. I don't have to train hard. It needs to be somewhat intense, but it's okay if it's not hard. And I started to train with little intensity to the point where I don't even know if I was making gains at one point. I was just kind of training and feeling like, oh yeah, I kind of feel a pump and a squeeze, but I don't know if I was making any gains. I don't know if I was making progress. But anyways, I guess what I'm trying to say now is I'm trying to step away from this, hey, it's okay if I don't train hard mentality. So I'm trying to find a balance between, okay, I've got to train hard to get the result that I want, which is to get step on the bodybuilding stage and look good, versus training at an intensity that's so little that I'm not making progress. If that makes sense.
This okay. So just listening to you there, it became very apparent to me what the solution is. And it is really and truly, it's all in the planning and knowing. So, you know, programming the training in a way that's set up to ensure that that intensity occurs, but also set up in a way to accommodate for times when recovery is less than optimal. And to translate that into super basic, when you haven't slept very well, right? And that wasn't for you, that was for anybody else listening. Sometimes sometimes, if you listen to like Mike Israetel talk or somebody like that, and they're just chatting away and using these like words and terms, and then it's sometimes even like Eugene Teo, for example, you ever watch one of his videos, I know exactly what they're saying. I can follow every single word,
Mm,
and that's all well and good for me. Um, but I'm also sitting there listening, thinking, if this wasn't me watching this video, I would probably switched off a little bit or gotten
mm,
lost somewhere along the way. Or I could remember a previous version of me getting like confused by what they were saying and then trying to follow along. Anyway, tangent. So that's why I simplified it. Um, didn't get enough sleep. So setting it up so that one of the things that I changed, I mean, obviously I don't write that many programs anymore, but when I was writing programs, or one of the two programs that I have had to write in the last year or so, is creating ranges, right? That you basically planning for different scenarios. So in scenario A, this is kind of the rep range, and then in scenario B, this is the rep range. So if you know, okay, my recovery's been all right, this is what I'm going to do today. If my recovery hasn't been all right, this is what I'm going to do today. But you've already put that in your planning. Um, that way, there's not a situation of I didn't sleep that well, but I planned for this. So, I'm trying to win, right? No excuses. Bang. There you go. And then you go and you overfill your cup. So actually knowing that you've got a few different scenarios that can play out, and then you create ranges for them. It's kind of like having a rough range for protein. Where you're not super consistent, it's just like, well, we know, okay, we'll take the calculation of um 1.4 times body weight in kilograms to 2 times body weight in kilograms, and we'll take that range, and we'll say, as long as you hit somewhere in between here, you've hit. Now that makes it a lot less stressful, and that means I'm more likely to hit because I've got a range. And it's the same thing with training. And there's no thing of you're not limiting yourself, so you're creating lots of options. how that looks, because I know right now, because I know you well enough to know what's going on in your head with all this. It's like, man, I don't want to have to type that out. But
One more thing to think about.
one more thing to think about, and as it is, I love thinking, because that's all I'm actually able to do. Uh, but it's actually really simple. Um, it's literally just using the same program, but widening the scope.
For
So
sure, I can do that.
like 6 to 12 reps. You see what I mean? Then you just make a decision at which end of of of, of it that you go to. But it says 6 to 12 reps. All right, well, guess I'm doing 12 reps today because it's a good day. And then another day, it's like, I got to do this exercise. I got to do at least 6 reps.
Mm.
So six is what it's going to be. And then you can feel it out from there. But it doesn't mean you have to create, 2 or 3 different programs. Because I know that's what my it sounded like. But yeah, so I think that probably makes a lot of sense for someone like you to have a bit more of a range where you've got such a unpredictable routine based on just you don't know what demands that your family are going to bring to you. That having ranges makes sense. And I think that makes sense for most people. To be fair, the more flexible you can quit. In my experience, and probably in your experience coaching people, when does anybody ever 100% stick to the plan, unless they literally are um, a single person with a very steady, uneventful 9 to 5 job um, in their 20s. You get a few people like that, maybe, and
Maybe.
everything runs smoothly. But for majority of the rest of us, shit's happening all the time. That's kind of having to like change your schedule throughout the week, and you can't always guarantee that you can make the same thing happen in that consistent manner. So I think ranges work probably for a lot of people, and you're not doing yourself a disservice by not sticking to a rigid plan.
Fair. Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. I can definitely do that.
All right. Cool. That was actually just a recap of the week before.
I know, right? Okay. So we'll keep this one fairly short, like in terms of what's happened this week. Basically, I've trained 4 times,
All right.
which is very positive. That was my goal.
So
If anything, I was looking for a fifth session. I was looking to train today as well.
it's
So I
not
was
too
pushing
late,
for
is it?
5.
It's not too
I know
late.
it's not too late. It's not too late. I might just do a cheeky arms and abs or something like that. Something light because I don't know if you can hear, but I'm actually feeling a bit under the weather.
All right. All right.
I've got a cold, so if I cough, I do apologize. But my nose is blocked and everything. And yesterday night I trained and I was feeling a bit. Yeah, I could feel like my energy just wasn't there. So actually, what you just spoke about now about ranges, I kind of applied that yesterday night because I wasn't feeling too good. So I said, okay, today today I'm not going to hit PRs. I'm not going to beat last week's session. I'm just going to do what I can. I'm in the gym right now. I'm happy with that. I was happy to be in the gym. So that's what I did. But all in all, it was a very good week. I think I was on the ball. And I had a little bit of a aha moment. I don't know if I can call it that, but we spoke last week about how to make nutrition work for me, how to make it more simple. Because I think sometimes I tend to overthink things. I'm like, okay, so what meal am I going to cook? Or am I going to cook rice in the morning? And what if I have to cook for my family? Am I going to cook that meal? It's just too many things going on. And I realized that I'm overcomplicating it in the sense that when I was cooking chicken, for example, I was cooking, the chicken thighs and drumsticks that kind of comes in its packet, right? And I'd forgotten that chicken breast already diced existed. And that you could literally just take it out of the packet, throw some salt and pepper, and throw it in the pan. And that was it. You didn't have to do any kind of prep work. It's just that easy. So when I started cooking that, I realized just how much time and stress it takes away from cooking. And I thought, this is it. This is what I've been looking for all along. This is it.
Um,
And, and as bro as that sounds, the whole chicken breast and rice, it's just easy.
yeah, I think
So I
you know
started doing that.
I shared some of my food with you before we started recording, and I think like the egg noodles, that's like even easier than the rice because it
Oh
literally,
yeah,
yeah, it takes 4 to 5 minutes.
or you stir fried.
Yeah, I mean, whether you stir fry it or not, like you just take it, put it in the water, 4 to 5 minutes later, it's done. It tastes pretty good. It's very satiating. It's still got a decent amount of fiber. It's not super high calorie, and it's higher in protein than any other carbohydrate source that generally we use. And yeah, and it works well with like chicken and vegetables, right? So and it's a nice solid variation. So yeah, and then like just chucking prawns in as well. Um, so there's lots of simple, practical, convenient ways to have high protein meals that are quite easy to put together. It doesn't have to be gourmet by any means. And then yeah, stir frying is always like the simplest, easiest thing to do. You can chop some vegetables, chuck it in, chuck your meat, fish, chicken, whatever it is that you're going to do. Chuck that in. Either have your rice or egg noodles or potatoes or whatever it is that you're going to do. Bob's your uncle.
I know it sounds ridiculous, but for me that was a game changer. Like literally, my protein intake has gone up just because I don't have to spend so much time cooking chicken.
That's quite. I mean, it's really it's crazy. I don't think is I've personally watched you already do that
I know,
before, so I don't. You're saying it's a game changer, but it's not
because I haven't
exactly
done this. I haven't done it in a long time. I guess I don't know. I tried to
something
find
changed
some
along
other
the
ways
line.
of doing it. Yeah, something changed along the lines, and I
I
thought, oh,
I I,
maybe
I think we've been because you came out of when especially when we stopped working together in a training capacity. Um, and obviously you'd basically stepped away from competing for a while. Probably during that period is when you switched off from all of these like habits that you'd built up, and yeah, so that's quite interesting how you reverted back to like a normal human being, um, and now you're like having to relearn how to be a bodybuilder. Um, that's quite interesting. All right, so yeah, I'll quickly sort of touch on like obviously you got a bit of a cold. Um, one of the things, you know, should you train when you have a cold, right?
that's it. That's it. That's the question.
Definitely, always it varies so much. One
Mm,
right now, if you're not feeling too well, given our current world situation, probably better just to stay at home, um, just in case you don't know. And secondly, um, I think the general advice was always anything below the neck is definitely like you're done. You need to rest. If you
mm,
only had symptoms above the neck, i.e., slight, like blocked nose or like your headache, or whatever, that you were okay to do light exercise. But here's my thing with that advice is, I'm like, well, I don't want to though. I
mm,
don't feel
mm.
well. So I don't want to go and like work out. Here's the reality of the situation: is if you miss um, 5 days of training, or even 10, because really and truly, it probably takes around about 10 days to fully recover. No gains were lost. Now, no gains were also made, but we know that changing or creating a different outcome is going to take longer than 10 days anyway. Um, it's going to take longer than 10 weeks. So, what's, what's that 10 days that you do? Like, it happens. We catch colds, we get ill. It's always better to rest. And you know, from a psychological perspective as well, the more pleasant and positive you can make your training experience overall, the more likely you are to be consistent with it. Whereas when we start creating all this stress and it becomes an unpleasant experience, very laborious, very taxing, and in some, competitive cases, I understand it will get like that, and that's fine. We're heading towards, a very competitive outcome. But for the majority of people, just take it easy, relax, and rest up, and kind of get back to it. So I probably wouldn't train today if I was you. And by the sounds of it, maybe not tomorrow
Oh
either.
man.
It's bad timing.
Talk about timing.
um, but yeah, all right. So it kind of already sounds like next week check-in is going to be very interesting.
Don't make me laugh.
And yeah, all right. So still managed to get your 4 training sessions in this week, so that's cool. You obviously found a way to be consistent. Um, we're still a very long way away. Well, we're getting closer every week, but we're still quite far away from actually getting into like a prep, stepping on stage. I suppose just a quick one on how you feel your training's going at the moment, like actually in the gym.
I think training is going good. Strength is going up on pretty much almost everything. Just arms that I'm finding. I mean, there's only so much I can do. If I'm lifting 12 kilo dumbbells and the next weight up is 14, it just feels like a big gap. There isn't so much I can do. So on arms, I'm not really progressing that much. I might be able to add one rep here and there, which is more than enough. But on everything else, strength is good. Strength is good. I'm feeling good. I'm feeling positive. I want to go to the gym. I enjoy my time when I'm there. So for me, that's letting me know that okay, my mindset is in the right place. I'm feeling good.
Yeah, I think things like arms, whereas obviously a little bit more trickier to increase in weight. It's a smaller muscle group, and that is probably where training to failure makes quite a bit of sense. As long as you can create a very stable setup where you're not having to borrow too much from other body parts. So stability is taken care of by a bench or a machine or whatever it might be, and actually just sort of taking that muscle to the end, and sort of like, okay, well, I can't really do another rep of this, and because those smaller muscles will recover pretty quickly. You don't really have to worry too much about whether it's you know whether you're able to do the next heaviest weight. So I think there the focus then obviously then becomes a lot more on actually taking the muscle to failure. And when you've got sort of bigger movements, multi-joint movements, um, you know, going to failure on that probably a little bit more sparingly. If it's like a barbell squat, for example, uh, a lot of things are going to give out before your quads do. Obviously, there's a greater risk of injury. The impact on your nervous system and the general fatigue that you build up, and the impact that that then has on the rest of your session and other training sessions and life in general. Sometimes the cost of going to failure there frequently is outweighed by all the downsides that I just sort of mentioned. So, but on a bicep curl, fucking go to town, man. Rep to your heart's content. Even if that's like a 12 kilo or 14 kilo, you'll probably get stronger anyway. All right, nice. I'm gonna sort of like start wrapping it up because it looks like you probably need to get some rest. Um, and I'm sure we've got plenty more weeks to unpack how things are going for you. Um, but yeah, last but not least, how are we rating this week?
So let's see. Last week did I say 4 point? Did I say 3.8 or 4 point
You
something?
said 3.8, and that was based on the fact that you were going to go train after that, after the recording
Oh
of
yeah,
course you didn't,
yeah,
and
no.
then you've readjusted it now to 3.5. So
This week was a solid 4.2.
4.2. I think that's
Yeah,
a new record,
I
ladies
think
and
this is
gentlemen.
the highest rating so far.
Wow.
This whole
Wow.
prep.
4.2. Really, really strong, solid effort. That's the most positive I've sort of. You've obviously got your head in a really good place. Gyms being open has obviously had a huge impact on that, no doubt about it. So that's good to hear. Uh, I'm gonna guess next week might not go so well.
Let's see. I'm feeling good about next week. I think
uh,
tomorrow I should feel a bit better.
all right. Don't again. Here's where I'm at with that. Is here's one thing I do very well is I read. I'm very good at reading myself, and I'm very good at managing illness. Um, I've got a real good sense of what's going to make it worse for me, and it's always, more than we think it is.
Mm,
So again, better to have 5 days off rather than 2 weeks off,
all right.
that kind of thing. So definitely give yourself plenty of rest. When you do get back into it, understand that having a cold still taxes your system.
Mm,
So even if it's a short period, you might not be 100% recovered energy wise. Um, so stay on that lower end, and hopefully recovery wise, sleep and everything goes well. Keep up with the vitamins. Um, and then yeah, maybe you do wake up feeling fantastic tomorrow. Sometimes that happens as well, which is great when it does because you're like, haha, I got away with it.
let's hope.
Let's hope. But if not, it's just 1 week, and then we got like, God knows how many more weeks ahead. Training for life out here, man. We're training for life, so it's all good. And then yeah, I'm sure you'll be keeping us all updated on where your physique is at and everything moving forward on Mighty underscore Meite. Is that the one?
Oh yeah, that's the one. Mighty
That's
Meite.
Mighty Meite. Cool. All right. I still remember the Flex magazine cover. Um,
Before I'd use that.
yeah, that was a pretty cool moment. But all right. Yeah, anything to add?
Nope, that's all for me, dude.
Okay, cool. Well, fingers crossed. This all comes out great, and we get to post this out live for everybody to listen to. Thank you for tuning in if you have done and listening so far. Um, Wherever this is posted, most likely you can. I know can't really leave comments on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, but if we do get this onto YouTube, feel free to leave comment. Um, Probably don't ask a question because there wasn't much to ask about here. But feel free to wish Mayte well, and I look forward to seeing where he's at next week. Um,
And if this is posted on YouTube, subscribe to the channel.
oh, YouTube veteran over
Hit
here!
the like button.
Hit the like button and subscribe.
Smash that like button.
Smash the like button. I don't know anything about YouTube. I barely know anything about Spotify. And clearly, we're still learning about podcasting. But bear with us. We're going to keep building it up and making it good. Still lots and lots and lots and lots of insight to share as Mayte goes through his journey. Cool. I'll leave it there. I'll catch you all next week. Peace.
All right, see you next week.